Jake Morrison opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt badly, and his mouth tasted like metal. The first thing he noticed was that he was not in his military base anymore. The walls around him were made of something that looked like crystal, but felt warm to touch. Strange lights moved inside the walls like liquid fire. He sat up carefully and looked around. The room was small, maybe 10 feet wide. There was no door that he could see. The floor felt soft under his hands, almost like it was alive. Jake had been a Navy SEAL for 8 years. He'd been in many dangerous places, but nothing like this. "You're awake," said a woman's voice behind him. Jake turned around fast. His training made him ready to fight, but he stopped when he saw 3 other people sitting in the corner. They looked as confused as he felt. "I'm Lisa Carter," the woman said. She was about 30 years old with short brown hair. "I'm a scientist. I study aliens in space." She pointed to the 2 men next to her. "This is Roy Phillips. He's a Marine. And this is Elena Vasquez. She builds things for spaceships." Roy was a big man with dark skin and strong arms. He looked angry and ready to fight. Elena was younger, maybe 25, with long black hair. She was looking at the walls with great interest. "Where are we?" Jake asked. His voice sounded strange in the crystal room. "We don't know for sure," Lisa said. "But I think we're on an alien ship, maybe even on an alien planet." Jake stood up and walked to one of the walls. He pressed his hand against it. The crystal felt warm and seemed to move under his touch. "Did we get here?" "The last thing I remember was being on our research ship," Lisa said. "We were studying a strange signal from deep space. Then everything went black." Roy spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and angry. "I was on the same ship. We were protecting the scientists. Then these things showed up. Big things. Nothing I ever saw before." Elena looked up from the wall she was studying. The ship was huge, bigger than anything humans have ever built. It just appeared out of nowhere and grabbed our ship with some kind of energy beam. What happened to him? He had been on a secret mission in the desert. Then he saw a bright light in the sky. After that, nothing. "I think they took us from different places," he said. "But why?" Lisa asked. Before anyone could answer, part of the wall began to change. It became transparent like glass. On the other side, they could see a long hallway. Strange creatures walked back and forth. They were tall, maybe 12 feet high. They had 6 arms and their skin looked like armor. Their heads were long and narrow like a snake's head. "Those are our captors," Elena whispered. "The Zephyrians." "How do you know that name?" Jake asked. "I heard them talking when they brought me here. They have machines that translate their language. They sound like they're clicking and hissing, but the machine makes it into English." "What?" Of the creatures stopped in front of their wall. It looked at them with large yellow eyes. Then it made a series of clicking sounds. A voice came from somewhere in the walls. It sounded flat and mechanical. "Humans, you have been selected for the Grand Arena. You will fight for the entertainment of the Empire. Those who fight well may live longer." Roy jumped up and ran to the wall. He hit it with his fists. "Let us out. We are soldiers of Earth. Our people will come for us." The alien creature made what sounded like laughter. The mechanical voice spoke. "Again, your species is new to us. We discovered your world 6 of your months ago. Your people do not yet travel between stars. No one will come for you." Jake felt cold inside. If these aliens were telling the truth, then Earth didn't even know they existed. No rescue was coming. "What is this Grand Arena?" Lisa asked. "It is where we test the fighting abilities of different species. The strongest and most dangerous creatures from across the galaxy fight each other. The winners live, the losers die. It has been our way for 2,000 years. Lena stepped closer to the wall. "You take people from their homes and make them fight to death for fun? Not just people, all kinds of creatures. We have collected the most dangerous predators from hundreds of worlds. Some can tear through metal with their claws, others can disappear and reappear anywhere they want. Some are so strong they can crush rocks with their hands." Roy hit the wall again. "We won't fight for you. You will fight, or you will die in your cell. Those are your only choices." The creature walked away. The wall became solid crystal again. The four humans sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Lisa spoke. They've been doing this for 2,000 years. They must have faced every kind of fighter in the galaxy. What kinds of creatures are we talking about? Jake asked. Lisa thought for a moment. If they've been collecting dangerous species from hundreds of worlds, then we might face things that have evolved to be perfect killers. Things that have natural weapons we can't imagine. Things that are faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything on Earth. Alina was still studying the walls. This whole place is like a big computer. The walls, the floor, everything is connected. They can probably change the environment in the fighting area to match any world they want. So we could be fighting ice creatures in a frozen wasteland, or fire creatures in a volcano, Roy said. Jake walked around the small room thinking. In all his years as a SEAL, he had learned that the most important thing in any dangerous situation was information. What do we know about our captors? They're called Zephyrians, Alina said. They're much bigger and stronger than us. They have 6 arms, so they can probably use more weapons at once. They built an empire based on entertainment. Lisa added, that means they value spectacle over efficiency. They want to see exciting fights, not quick kills. They've never fought humans before, Jake said slowly. That might be important. Roy looked at him. What do you mean? Think about it. They've captured creatures from hundreds of worlds. Each species probably fights the same way their species has always fought. Big creatures use their size. Fast creatures use their speed. Creatures with claws use their claws. But humans don't have natural weapons, Alina said. We're not the biggest, fastest, or strongest. Jake smiled for the first time since waking up. Exactly. We're something they've never seen before. We don't have one way of fighting. We adapt. We think. We use tools and strategy. You think that gives us a chance? Lisa asked. Maybe every creature they've captured probably fights on instinct. They do what their species has always done. But humans learn to survive by doing something different every time. Roy was starting to look interested. You mean they expect us to fight like animals, but we can fight like soldiers? More than that, Jake said. We can fight like humans. We can think about our opponents, learn their weaknesses, and find ways to win that they never expect. Lena looked up from the wall again. There's something else. I've been listening to the energy patterns in this place. Everything here is designed around the idea that captured creatures will always fight with fear and anger. What if we don't? What do you mean? Lisa asked. What if we stay calm? What if we think instead of just react? What if we do something no creature in their arena has ever done before? Jake nodded slowly. That's exactly what I was thinking. They've studied human weapons and human tactics, but they haven't studied the human mind. The 4 humans looked at each other. They were facing impossible odds against creatures that could probably kill them in seconds. But for the first time since waking up in the crystal prison, they felt something like hope. They were human, and that might be enough. The next morning, the wall in their cell became clear again. 2 Zephyrian guards stood outside. They were even bigger than the first one Jake had seen. Their armor was thick and black, and they carried weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. The mechanical voice spoke from the walls. Humans, you will now see the grand arena. You need to understand what awaits you. Part of the floor began to move upward like an elevator. The 4 humans held on to each other as they rose through the crystal structure. Jake watched through the transparent walls as they passed level after level of the alien ship or building. Finally, they stopped. The wall in front of them disappeared completely. What Jake saw made his breath catch in his throat. The grand arena was the biggest space he had ever seen. It was carved from one huge piece of crystal that sparkled in the light of 3 different colored suns. The arena floor was a perfect circle, maybe a mile across. Round it, seats rose up in giant steps. There were millions of seats, and almost all of them were filled with Zephyrians. The crowd made a sound like 1,000 storms. They clicked and hissed and roared with excitement. Their 6 arms waved in the air. Some held strange devices that Jake guessed were cameras or recording equipment. Look at the floor, Alina whispered. Jake looked down at the arena floor. It was not just sand or rock. The ground seemed to be alive. Parts of it were moving and changing. As he watched, hills rose up from nothing, trees grew in seconds. Small lake appeared and then dried up. Entire landscape was shifting and changing like a living thing. "They can make it look like any world," Lisa said with amazement and fear in her voice. Roy pointed to different sections of the crowd. "Look at all the different types of aliens." Jake looked where Roy was pointing. The crowd was not just Zephyrians. There were creatures Jake could not even begin to understand. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what looked like living metal. Some seemed to be just energy with no solid body at all. "The Zephyrian Empire must control hundreds of worlds," Lisa said. "All these different species come here to watch the fights." A new voice boomed across the arena. It was louder than thunder and came from everywhere at once. The translation made it sound cold and cruel. "Citizens of the Empire, today we present new fighters. From the small world called Earth, we bring you humans." The crowd made a sound that was part laughter and part disappointment. Jake could tell. They were not impressed. "But first," the voice continued, "let us show these newcomers what real combat looks like." A gate opened on the far side of the arena. Something huge came out. It walked on 4 legs and was covered in thick gray skin, like an elephant. But this creature was 3 times bigger than any elephant. Its head had long tusks that curved like swords. Its eyes glowed red with anger. "That is a Garathian war beast," the voice explained. "It has killed over 300 fighters in this arena. Its skin is harder than your human metals. Strength can crush stone." Another gate opened. 3 creatures ran out. They looked like large cats, but their fur was black as space. As Jake watched, one of them seemed to fade away like smoke, then appeared again 20 feet away. "Shadow hunters from the dark moon of Nexus," the voice said. "They can step between dimensions. No fighter has ever successfully hit one." The war beast charged at the shadow hunters. Its huge feet made the ground shake, but the cat-like creatures simply disappeared. They reappeared behind the beast and jumped onto its back. Their claws were long and sharp, but the war beast's skin was too thick. The shadow hunter's claws could not cut deep enough. The beast rolled over, trying to crush them. 2 of the hunters disappeared again, but the third was too slow. The war beast's huge foot came down on it. Jake heard bones breaking even from far away. The crowd roared with excitement. The 2 remaining shadow hunters tried to attack from different sides. They moved so fast, they were like black lightning. But the war beast was smarter than it looked. It waited until both hunters appeared at the same time, then swung its massive head.
Ass.
One of its sword-like tusks caught a shadow hunter in the chest. The creature died instantly. The last shadow hunter realized it could not win. It tried to run, but the war beast was faster than something that big should be. It caught the final hunter and crushed it in its jaws. The crowd went wild. They cheered and screamed and waved their arms. Jake felt sick. "The Garathian war beast wins again," the voice announced. "It will return to its cage to wait for the next challenge." As the huge creature walked back to its gate, Jake noticed something important. It was not just a mindless animal. It looked up at the crowd and seemed to enjoy their cheers. It was smart enough to understand that it was entertainment. The voice said, "We present the terror of the Void Nebula." This time, the gate opened, but nothing came out. The arena floor became darker. Then Jake saw them. Shapes that were not quite there. They looked like shadows that had come alive. They moved across the ground like black water. Void Stalkers. The voice explained, "They have destroyed all life on 17 worlds. They feed on living energy. No weapon can harm them, because they are not fully in our dimension." Another gate opened. A group of creatures came out that looked like wolves, but they were twice as big, and their fur was silver metal. Their eyes were bright blue, and they moved together like they were sharing one mind. "Cybernetic pack hunters from the machine world of Titan 7, the voice said. "Their bodies are part flesh, part computer. They can calculate the best attack strategy in milliseconds." The metal wolves spread out in a perfect circle. They moved with mechanical precision. But as they got closer to the center of the arena, the Void Stalkers rose up from the ground like black smoke. The battle was horrible to watch. The metal wolves were fast and smart, but they could not hit enemies that were barely there. The void stalkers flowed around them like dark water. Every time they touched one of the wolves, the creature would scream and collapse. The wolves' bright blue eyes would go dark as their life energy was drained away. In less than 5 minutes, all the metal wolves were dead. The void stalkers sank back into the ground and disappeared. Incredible, the voice boomed. The void stalkers remain undefeated. Jake looked at his 3 companions. Lisa was pale and shaking. Alina had her hand over her mouth like she might be sick. Roy's hands were clenched into fists. "How are we supposed to fight things like that?" Alina whispered, before anyone could. "Answer," the voice spoke again. "And now, citizens of the Empire, the moment you have all been waiting for. The return of our greatest champion is the creature that has never lost a single battle, the apex predator." The largest gate in the arena opened. What came out was a nightmare made real. The creature stood 15 feet tall, on 2 powerful legs. It had 3 heads, each one different. One head looked like a dragon with teeth like swords. Another head was covered in armor and had eyes that glowed with intelligence. The third head seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors. Its body was covered in scales that looked harder than steel. It had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could probably cut through rock. A long tail with spikes swept back and forth behind it. "The apex predator," the voice announced, "created by our finest scientists, combines the deadliest features of dozens of species. Speed of the Centaurian stalkers, strength of the Garathian titans, intelligence of the Krallian war minds, and the regenerative powers of the hydrant spawn. Nothing has survived more than 30 seconds against it." The creature walked to the center of the arena. All 3 of its heads looked up at the crowd. Then it opened all 3 mouths and roared. The sound was so loud it shook the crystal walls of the arena. The crowd went completely silent. Even they were afraid of this thing. Jake stared at the monster below. It was everything Lisa had feared and more. It was bigger, stronger, faster, and smarter than anything nature had ever created. It was the perfect killing machine. But as he watched it, Jake noticed something the crowd probably missed. All 3 heads moved independently, but they did not always agree on where to look. Sometimes one head would turn left while another turned right. For just a moment, Jake saw confusion in the creature's movements. "It's not one mind," he whispered to himself. "What?" Lisa asked. "The apex predator. It has 3 heads, but I think it might have 3 different minds. They have to work together, but they don't always agree." Roy looked at him. "You think that's a weakness? Maybe if we're going to fight that thing, we need to find every weakness we can." The apex predator was led back to its gate, the arena. Floor changed again, returning to simple sand. "Tomorrow," the voice announced, "the humans will begin their trials. We will see if this new species can provide suitable entertainment." As they were lowered back to their cell, Jake's mind was racing. He had seen what they were up against. Creatures that could disappear and reappear at will. Beasts with skin. Harder than metal. Monsters that could drain life with a touch. And finally, a perfect predator designed to kill anything. But he had also seen something else. Every creature fought the same way their species always fought. The war beast used its strength and tusks. The shadow hunters used their ability to disappear. The void stalkers used their energy drain. None of them had adapted. None of them had tried something new. Jake woke up before the others. He had spent most of the night thinking about what they had seen in the arena. Every creature fought with anger and fear. They used their natural weapons and abilities, but they did not think beyond that. He sat quietly in the corner of their cell and began to meditate. It was something he had learned during a secret mission in Tibet. A monk had taught him how to empty his mind of all thoughts and fears. Jake had used this skill many times when he needed to stay calm in dangerous situations. Lisa woke up next. She looked at Jake sitting so still and quiet. "How can you be so calm?" she asked. "'Cause being afraid won't help us," Jake said without opening his eyes. "Fear makes you do stupid things. It makes you fight the way your enemy expects you to. Fight. Roy and Alina woke up as the lights in their cell got brighter. They knew it meant the day's battles were about to begin. The mechanical voice spoke from the walls. Human called Jake Morrison. You will fight first. The others will watch. And learn what happens to those who fail to entertain. The wall opened. 2 guards with energy weapons pointed them at Jake. He stood up slowly and walked toward them without showing any fear. Jake! Lisa called after him. Be careful. He turned back and smiled. Remember what I said? They expect us to fight like animals. Don't give them what they expect. The guards led Jake through long crystal corridors. Other captured creatures watched from their cells as he passed. Some roared and tried to grab him through the bars. Jake ignored them all. Finally, they reached a small room next to the arena. Through a window, Jake could see the huge crowd gathering. Millions of aliens filled the seats. They were excited to see what the new human could do. Your opponent today, one of the guards said through a translator, is a Garathian war beast, the same type that killed the shadow hunters yesterday. It is never lost to a creature your size. Jake nodded. He had been thinking about that beast. All night, the gate opened. Jake walked into the arena. The sand felt warm under his feet. The crowd was making so much noise it sounded like a hurricane, but Jake barely heard them. His mind was completely focused. The war beast's gate opened on the other side of the arena. The huge creature came out slowly. It was even bigger than Jake remembered. Its gray skin looked thick as armor. Its red eyes stared at him with hatred. Its sword-like tusks gleamed in the light. The beast looked at Jake and made a sound that was part roar and part laughter. To this creature, Jake was just a tiny snack. Begin. The voice boomed across the arena. The war beast charged. It's huge. Feet made the ground shake with each step. It was fast for something so big. Its tusks were pointed right at Jake's chest. Jake stood perfectly still. He did not run. He did not try to dodge. He just waited. The crowd went silent. It had never seen a fighter just stand there when death was charging at them. At the very last second, when the tusks were inches from his body, Jake moved. But he did not jump to the side like the crowd expected. Instead, he stepped forward and slightly to the right. The war beast's momentum carried it past him. Its left tusk missed Jake by less than an inch. But Jake was already moving. As the beast passed, he jumped onto its back. The war beast tried to shake him off, but Jake held on tight. He had studied the creature carefully the day before. He knew exactly where he needed to go. Jake climbed up the beast's neck, toward its head. The creature was spinning and bucking like a wild horse, but Jake had been trained for this kind of thing. During his SEAL training, he had learned to stay calm and focused even when everything around him was chaos. The war beast slammed its body against the arena wall, trying to crush Jake. But Jake was ready for that too. At the last second, he swung around to the beast's other side. Now Jake was right behind the creature's head. He could see the spot he was looking for. During his years as a SEAL, Jake had learned about pressure points on the human body. Places where the right kind of pressure could make a person go unconscious without hurting them badly yesterday. When he watched the war beast fight, Jake had noticed something. The way it moved its head, the way it turned its neck, it was similar to elephants he had seen. And Jake knew that elephants had a pressure point right behind their ears. Jake pressed his fingers into the soft spot behind the war beast's left ear. He found the nerve cluster he was looking for and pressed hard. The war beast's roar suddenly stopped. Its legs shook for a moment, then it fell to the ground. It was not dead, just unconscious. The arena was completely silent. 1,000,000 aliens stared in shock. No one had ever defeated a Garathian war beast without using weapons or natural abilities. Jake climbed down from the unconscious beast. He walked to the center of the arena and waited. Impossible, the announcer's voice finally said. The human has defeated the war beast, but how? Jake said nothing. He just stood quietly until the guards came to take him back to his cell. When Jake returned, his 3 friends rushed to him. That thing was 10 times bigger than you. I used my brain instead of my muscles. Jake said, I studied it yesterday. I looked for weaknesses instead of just seeing how strong it was. Alina was excited. The crowd didn't know what to think. They'd never seen anything like that before. That's exactly what I was hoping for, Jake said. The next day, Jake was called to fight again. This time his opponents were 3 shadow hunters. The same type of creatures that had fought the war beast. Lisa grabbed his arm before he went to the arena. These things can disappear and reappear anywhere. How can you fight something you can't see? By not trying to see them, Jake said. The crowd was much bigger today. Word had spread about the strange human who had defeated a war beast without weapons. Many aliens had come to see if it was just luck. The shadow hunters were released into the arena. They were beautiful in a deadly way. Their black fur seemed to absorb light. Their eyes were like green fire. They moved like liquid darkness. Jake walked to the center of the arena and did something that shocked everyone. He sat down in the sand, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. The shadow hunters circled him slowly. They had never seen prey that did not run or fight back. They were confused but still dangerous. One of them disappeared. Jake could not see where it went, but he did not need to. He listened instead. The monk in Tibet had taught him that when you cannot use your eyes, your other senses become much stronger. Jake could hear the sand moving as the invisible hunter crept closer. He could smell its wild scent. He could feel the heat from its body as it got ready to attack. The shadow hunter reappeared right behind Jake, its claws reaching for his neck. But Jake was already moving. He rolled forward just as the claws swept through the air. Where his head had been, the second hunter disappeared and reappeared on Jake's left side. Again, Jake heard it coming. He spun around and grabbed the creature's front leg as it jumped at him. Using the hunter's own momentum, he threw it into the third hunter. Both creatures rolled in the sand, growling with anger. Jake stood up but kept his eyes closed. I can hear you, he said quietly. I can smell you. I can feel the air. Move when you jump. Disappearing doesn't make you silent. The shadow hunters tried again and again to attack him. Each time, Jake moved just enough to avoid their claws. He never tried to hurt them. He just stayed out of their way. After 20 minutes, the hunters were exhausted. They had used all their energy trying to catch prey that should have been easy. To kill, they lay on the sand, breathing hard. Jake opened his eyes and looked at them. You're tired, he said. You can rest now. The 3 shadow hunters looked at each other, then at Jake. Slowly, they backed away from him. For the first time in their lives, they had met something that was not afraid of them. The crowd was silent again. Jake had done something impossible. He had defeated creatures that could disappear without even trying to hurt them. As Jake was led back to his cell, he could hear the aliens in the crowd talking excitedly. They had never seen fights like these before. That evening, a Zephyrian official came to their cell. He was different from the guards. He wore fancy clothes and had golden decorations on his armor. Human, he said to Jake, you fight in ways we have never seen. Tomorrow, you will face a greater challenge. The crystalline sentinel from the mineral world of Quarian. It is made of living crystal and can reshape itself at will. Its energy beams can cut through solid metal. Jake nodded. I understand. In the crowd now believe you might be more than just entertainment. The Emperor himself will be watching your next battle. After the official left, Roy turned to Jake. How do you fight something made of crystal that can change shape and shoot energy beams? Jake smiled. The same way I fought everything else, by doing something it doesn't expect. Lisa looked worried. What if your luck runs out? It's not luck, Jake said. Every creature we've seen fights the same way their species has always fought. They're strong, fast, or have special abilities. But they don't adapt. They don't think about their opponent. They just use the same tactics over and over. Alina was starting to understand. So you win by being unpredictable. Exactly. And tomorrow. I'm going to try something that no fighter in this arena has ever tried before. Jake sat down to meditate again. He had one more day to prepare for his greatest challenge yet. The third day brought more aliens to the arena than Jake had ever seen. Ships from across the galaxy had arrived during the night. The crowd was not just Zephyrians anymore. There were creatures Jake could not even imagine. All come to see the Human who fought in impossible ways, Jake had spent the morning in deep meditation. He knew today would be different. The crystalline sentinel was not like the other opponents. It was not an animal or a natural creature. It was something between alive and machine. When the guards came for him, Jake was ready. As they walked through the corridors, he could hear the crowd roaring above them. The sound was like an ocean. Storm? In the waiting room, a new official was waiting for him. This one wore robes covered in jewels and had a crown-like device on his head. Human Jake Morrison, the official said. I am High Chancellor Vexter, personal advisor to Emperor Kethvas himself. The Emperor has come to see you fight today. Jake looked through the window at the royal box high above the arena. A massive Zephyrian sat on a throne made of black crystal. Even from far away, Jake could feel the power coming from that figure. The Emperor is impressed by your victories, Vextar continued. But he believes today will be your last day alive. The crystalline sentinel has killed over 500 fighters. It learns from every battle and becomes stronger. I understand, Jake said simply. If by some miracle you survive today, Vexter said, you will face our greatest weapon tomorrow. The apex predator. No creature has ever survived 30 seconds against it. Jake nodded. He had been thinking about the apex predator since the first day, the three-headed monster that had confused even itself. The gate opened. Gate walked into the arena. The crowd noise hit him like a physical force. Millions of aliens were on their feet, screaming and cheering. Some held signs with strange writing. Others had devices that projected lights and sounds. The arena floor had changed again. Now, it looked like the inside of a cave. Crystal formations rose from the ground like frozen lightning. The walls sparkled with inner light. The sentinels. Gate opened. What came out was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The creature was 12 feet tall and made entirely of living crystal. Its body was constantly changing shape. Sometimes it looked like a giant spider, then it would flow into the shape of a snake. Then it became something with many arms and legs. As Jake watched, the sentinel's arm turned into a sharp sword made of crystal. Energy flowed through its body like colored lightning. Its eyes were two bright stars that seemed to look right through. Him, begin. The voice boomed. The sentinel immediately fired an energy beam at Jake. The beam cut through the air with a sound like tearing silk. Jake dove behind one of the crystal formations just as the beam hit where he had been standing. The sand turned to glass from the heat. Jake stayed hidden behind the crystal rock. He could hear the sentinel moving, its crystal body making musical sounds as it changed shape. He could see colored lights reflecting off the cave walls as energy built up inside the creature. Another energy. A beam cut through the crystal formation right next to Jake's head. The sentinel was trying to flush him out. But Jake was not planning to run and hide. He was thinking about what he had learned from watching other fighters. They all tried to attack the sentinel directly, tried to hit it with claws or teeth or weapons, but the sentinel could just change its shape to avoid damage. Jake stepped out from behind his hiding place. The sentinel saw him immediately and began to charge up another energy beam. Wait, Jake said in a clear, loud voice. The sentinel paused. In all its battles, no opponent had ever asked it to wait. Jake walked slowly toward the creature, his hands held up to show he was not carrying weapons. You're not really a fighter, are you? He said. The sentinel's crystal eyes focused on him. It did not fire its energy beam, but Jake could see the power still building inside its body. You're a living computer, Jake continued. You learn from every battle. You store information and use it to become better at fighting. The sentinel's shape shifted slightly. It was listening. Jake stopped about 20 feet away from the creature, close enough to talk, but far enough away that he might be able to dodge if it attacked. Every fighter who comes here tries to destroy you, Jake said. They see you as an enemy, to be beaten. But what if I don't want to fight you at all? The crowd was getting restless. They wanted to see action, not talking. But the Emperor had raised one of his 6 hands, telling them to be quiet. You collect information, Jake said. You'll learn. That means you're intelligent, can think. You can choose. The sentinel's body stopped changing shape. It stood perfectly still, processing what Jake was saying. I'm going to try something, Jake said. He knelt down in the sand and began to draw with his finger. He drew a circle.
Ow.
Then he drew a line through it.
Ow.
Then he drew a triangle next to the circle. The sentinel moved closer to see what Jake was doing. Jake drew more shapes. A square, a star. Then he began to draw numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mathematics, Jake said. The universal language. Every intelligent species understands numbers and shapes. The sentinel's crystal arm began to change. Instead of forming a weapon, it shaped itself into a long, thin finger. The creature knelt down across from Jake and began to draw its own shapes. In the sand, the crowd was completely silent now. Nothing like this had ever happened in the arena. The sentinel drew complex, mathematical formulas. Equations that Jake recognized from advanced physics. Then it drew star charts showing the positions of galaxies. Jake smiled. You're not just intelligent, you're brilliant. He drew a simple picture of the arena with stick figures representing the crowd. Then he drew an X over the whole picture. This is wrong, Jake said. It's making intelligent beings fight for entertainment. You know it's wrong. The sentinel drew its own picture. It showed itself in a cage, then in the arena, fighting. Creature after creature. There was sadness in the simple drawing. You don't want to fight anymore, Jake said. You want to learn. You want to explore. You want to be free. The sentinel looked up at the royal box where the emperor sat. Its crystal eyes flashed with what looked like anger. Then, it did something that shocked everyone in the arena. It bowed. To Jake, the creature's crystal body began to change one last time. It formed itself into the shape of a beautiful flower made of living light. Then it simply walked back to its gate and left the arena. The crowd exploded into chaos. Some aliens were cheering. Others were angry. Many were just confused. Nothing like this had ever happened before. In the royal box, Emperor Kethva stood up. His 6 arms were shaking with rage. Impossible, his voice boomed across the arena. The sentinel was programmed to fight. How did the human break its programming? Chancellor Vexstar spoke into his communication device. Your Majesty, the human did not fight at all. He communicated with the sentinel as if it were an equal. He treated it like a person, not a weapon. The Emperor's yellow eyes focused on Jake, standing alone in the center of the arena. This human is dangerous. He does not just fight differently, he thinks differently. He makes others think differently. Jake could not hear what they were saying, but he could guess. He had done something that threatened the entire system of the arena. Had shown that the creatures forced to fight were not just animals or weapons. They were intelligent beings who deserved better. As the guards led Jake back to his cell, he could hear arguments breaking out all over the arena. Some aliens were demanding that their own captured fighters be freed. Others were angry that the entertainment had been ruined. When Jake reached his cell, his 3 friends were waiting with expressions of amazement and fear. Jake, Lisa said, what you did out there, you didn't just win a fight, you started something bigger. Roy was pacing, back and forth. The guards are nervous. They keep talking into their radios. Something big is happening. Alina was listening to the energy patterns in the walls. The whole building is buzzing with activity. Ships are leaving. Others are arriving. I think some aliens are taking their fighters and going home. Jake sat down in his corner to think. Tomorrow he would face the apex predator. Now he knew something important. The creatures in this arena were not just mindless monsters. They were prisoners, just like he was. And some of them, maybe all of them, were ready to stop fighting. What's your plan for tomorrow? Lisa asked. Jake looked at his friends. I'm going to try to do something that no one expects. I'm going to try to save the apex predator instead of fighting it. Roy stared at him. Save it! That thing is a killing machine. No, Jake said quietly. It's 3 different minds trapped in one body, forced to kill for the entertainment of others. Tomorrow I'm going to try to set it free. Outside their cell. The sounds of chaos continued through the night. The arena that had operated unchanged for 2,000 years was beginning to fall apart. And it had all started with one human who chose to talk instead of fight. The 4th day was different from all the others. Jake could feel the tension in the air as soon as he woke up. The guards who came to get him were nervous. They kept looking over their shoulders and talking in whispers as they walked through. The corridors, Jake saw that many of the cells were empty. Some of the alien fighters had been taken away during the night. He could hear arguments echoing through the crystal walls. Voices raised in anger and fear. In the waiting room, High Chancellor Vexstar was pacing back and forth. His jeweled robes were wrinkled and his crown was crooked. He looked like he had not slept. "Human," he said, when he saw Jake, "what you did yesterday has caused great trouble. Some of our guests have demanded the return of their fighters. They say forcing intelligent beings to fight is wrong." Jake said nothing. He just waited. "The Emperor is very angry," Vexstar continued. "He says you are a disease that is spreading. Dangerous ideas. Today you will face the apex predator, and this time there will be no talking. You will fight or you will die." "I understand," Jake said. "The Emperor has given special orders. If you try to communicate with the apex predator like you did with the Sentinel, you will be killed immediately by energy weapons. This ends today." Looked through the window at the arena. The crowd was smaller than yesterday, but those who remained seemed angry and excited. In the royal box, Emperor Kethfa sat forward on his throne. Jake could see weapons pointed at the arena from hidden positions. The gate opened. Jake walked into the arena for what he knew might be the last time. The ground was simple sand today. No crystals or forests or lakes, just a plain circle of sand surrounded by a million watching eyes. Jake walked to the center and waited. Could feel the energy weapons tracking him from above. Any wrong move, and he would be dead instantly. The apex predator's gate opened slowly. The massive creature came out step by step. It was even more terrifying up close than Jake had remembered. 15 feet tall, covered in armor-like scales. With 3 heads that moved independently, the dragon head roared with a sound like thunder. The armored head studied Jake with cold intelligence. The crystal head changed colors from red to blue, to green. "Citizens of the Empire." The announcer's voice boomed. "Today, the human faces our ultimate weapon. The apex predator has never lost. It has never been defeated. It has never shown mercy." The creature walked slowly toward Jake, its 4 arms ended in claws that could cut through steel. Its tail swept back and forth behind it like a massive whip. "Begin," the voice commanded. Jake did something that shocked everyone watching. Instead of running or fighting or trying to talk, he sat down in the sand. He crossed his legs, closed his eyes, and became perfectly still. The apex predator stopped. 3 heads looked down at this strange small creature that showed no fear, no aggression, no movement at all. The dragon head snarled and moved closer. The armored head tilted to one side, confused. The crystal head pulsed with different colors. Jake opened his eyes and looked up at the monster. "I know what you are," he said quietly. The energy weapons above began to charge up. Jake could hear the humming sound they made, but he continued talking. "You're not one creature. You're 3 different minds trapped in one body. You don't agree? With each other. Sometimes you want to go left and right at the same time. Sometimes one head wants to fight, while another wants to think." The apex predator's 3 heads turned to look at each other. For a moment, Jake could see confusion and maybe even pain in their eyes. "They made you by combining different species," Jake continued, "but they didn't think about what it would be like to have 3 different personalities sharing one body. You're not a perfect weapon. You're 3 prisoners trapped together." The dragon head roared angrily and snapped at Jake, but the armored head pulled back, stopping the attack. Crystal head flashed bright white. "You've been fighting for them for so long," Jake said. "Killing other prisoners like yourself. How many creatures have you destroyed that were just like you? Captured, caged, forced to fight?" The 3 heads began to move in different directions. Jake could see that they were struggling with each other inside their shared mind. "I'm not going to fight you," Jake said. "I'm not going to run away either. I'm going to sit right here and show you something no one else in this arena has ever shown you." Jake closed his eyes again and became completely still. "Trust," he said. The apex predator moved closer. Its claws were inches from Jake's head. The dragon head wanted to strike, but the armored head was thinking. And the crystal head was changing colors rapidly. processing new ideas. In the royal box, Emperor HFY stood up. "Kill the human now," he ordered. But before the energy weapons could fire, something unprecedented happened. The apex predator turned around and roared at the royal box. All three heads were finally working together. Their combined voice shook the entire arena. Then the massive creature lay down in the sand next to Jake. Its body formed a protective wall around the small human. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some aliens were cheering. Others were screaming in anger. Many were running for the exits. Jake opened his eyes and looked at the three heads surrounding him. "Thank you," he said simply. But the apex predator was not the only one listening. Then, cells all around the arena, other captured fighters had heard Jake's words. They began to roar and howl and sing in their own languages. The sound grew louder and louder until it drowned out even the crowd. Emperor HFY was screaming orders at his guards. "Kill them all! Destroy the prisoners! Destroy the human!" But something amazing happened. The guards hesitated. Some of them lowered their weapons. In the 2,000 years of the arena, they had never thought about the fighters as anything but entertainment. Now they were seeing them as intelligent beings who had been wronged. Jake stood up and looked around the arena. "Call this entertainment?" he said, his voice somehow carrying over all the noise. "You capture beings from across the galaxy and force them to kill each other for your pleasure. But every creature in your cages is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend." He pointed to the apex predator. "Created this creature by combining 3 different species. But you never asked if they wanted to be combined. Never asked if they wanted to fight. You just assumed you had the right to do whatever you wanted because you were stronger." More and more aliens in the crowd were starting to look uncomfortable. Some were leaving their seats. Others were arguing with each other. "Humans didn't become the dominant species on our world because we were the strongest or the fastest," Jake continued. "We survived because we learned to work together. We learned to help each other instead of destroying each other." A group of Zephyrian nobles in expensive clothes stood up and began walking toward the exits. "This is wrong," one of them said loudly. "We cannot continue this." Emperor HFY realized he was losing control. "Guards, arrest all the prisoners. Arrest anyone who supports them." But the guards were no longer listening to him. Many of them were putting down their weapons. Some were even opening the gates to the holding cells. Captured fighters began pouring into the arena. But instead of attacking each other, they gathered around Jake and the apex predator. The Garathian war beast that Jake had defeated walked up and bowed its massive head. The shadow hunters appeared and sat down peacefully nearby. More and more creatures joined them. Soon, there were hundreds of fighters in the arena, all united for the first time in the arena's history. Jake looked up at the royal box where Emperor HFY sat alone, abandoned by his own nobles and guards. "Your empire was built on forcing others to fight for your entertainment," Jake called to him. "But entertainment built on suffering cannot last forever. Today it ends." The crowd was almost empty now. Ships were taking off from the landing platforms around the arena. Across the galaxy, the news was spreading. The Zephyrian arena system was collapsing. Lisa, Roy, and Alina were brought into the arena by sympathetic guards. They ran to Jake and hugged him tightly. "You did it," Lisa said with tears in her eyes. "You actually did it." Jake looked around at all the freed creatures surrounding them. Different species from hundreds of worlds, all brought together by a simple idea that every intelligent being deserved to be treated with respect. "We all did it," Jake said. "We showed them that there's a better way than fighting. We showed them that cooperation is stronger than competition." The apex predator's 3 heads all looked at Jake. For the first time since their creation, all 3 minds were in agreement. They were free. In the days that followed, ships came from across the galaxy to take the freed fighters home. Some chose to stay together, forming new alliances between species that had never worked together before. Jake and his friends were given a ship to return to Earth, but before they left, the apex predator approached them one last time. "Come with us," Jake offered. "There's a whole galaxy to explore now that you're free." The 3 heads conferred with each other, then nodded in agreement. As their ship flew away from the crystal arena, Jake looked back one last time. The great structure was being torn down. In its place, the former prisoners were building something new. A meeting place where different species could come to learn from each other instead of fighting. The Zephyrian Empire would never be the same. Asterisk.